Welcome to the Hiring Table, your weekly dose of hiring insights, airing Fridays at 12 p.m. Pacific. Today we have Jeremiah Lupercio, who's a CPA. Jeremiah, thanks for joining us. A little bit about Jeremiah's career. He started at UCSB, got his bachelor's degree in econ and accounting, achieving his CPA license 3 years later. Right out of college, Jeremiah started in public accounting. His first job was at M. Green & Company. He was there for about 5 years working audit and tax. Transitioned into private industry after about 5 years over to Moff Industries, which is a manufacturer of conveyor systems. Couple of years there, and then he joined one of the most recognized companies here in the Central Valley, Sun-Maid, over 100 years in business, just a staple of the Central Valley. Started as a senior accountant, quickly climbed to manager of FP&A, so you transitioned into corporate finance. Currently the senior manager of FP&A for Sun-Maid Growers of California. Jeremiah, welcome to the Hiring Table podcast. Yeah. If you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, man. I think that pretty much sums it up there. Had a great time in college. The whole public accounting scene was a lot of work. You hit the ground running hard. You're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. You're getting that experience. But that is what gives you that experience to go into that private industry. And Moff, that was a wild ride.
Wild ride.
That was
okay.
A wild ride.
I'm very interested and curious, right out of school, let's talk about the CPA. I think that's one of the biggest topics that we experience here with questions and issues and what review course and timeline and due dates and time to study and all of that. Tell me about your experience. When did you decide to go for your CPA? Did you pass the first time? Tell me about that journey.
Yes, I did pass all 4 exams. My first go around. I think the only exam I failed was the ethics,
Yeah. Of all of them. That's the one.
You want to knock that out early in your career. You get into the firm, you get your hours, but as you're working through your hours, you want to be sitting there trying to get your CPA, especially if you're working for a public firm. You want to knock that out as quickly as possible. Now, when it comes to hiring individuals, a CPA candidate is something we always see, and we take it with a grain of salt, to be honest with you. Because everybody at that point in their career is a CPA candidate, and
that means nothing.
That means nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That's just a meaning to them, hey, if you want to go for it, you have enough college credits.
That's honestly, recruiters throw that on there just to kind of spice up their resumes. But
yeah. Or maybe they just put their letterhead on it and send it to you and it's already on there.
But what's cool about that, we look for individuals that have already passed a few exams. If they're going down that journey and we've seen they've passed 1 or 2 exams, it's like, okay, they're actively pursuing it, and they're actively going for it. Because it's a commitment. That exam is a commitment. It takes a lot of time in your life. Like for me personally, I was a single dad, so I had my son. I was working with the firm, going through audit season, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and then I would sit there and have to come home and study. So sitting there, get my dinner, get into bed, and then throw on the computer, and I'm studying 3-4 hours a night.
Wow, that's tremendous.
It's commitment.
Either your intellect and aptitude is amazing, or you spent no time sleeping, because passing on the first time, single dad, that seems a lot of people wouldn't pass on the first time under those circumstances, but you did, so congrats.
Oh, thanks, man. It's what you want, right? If you want it, you go after it, you get it, and get it done. It's a lot of material to go through, but it's not that hard. If you put in the time and the effort, you're going to pass. I used personally was that Becker. Our firm had that time, had a computer loaded with the whole Becker stuff, so we'd go there, watch the videos, take the multiple choice, and it was just a routine after a while. Once you get in the routine, it gets a lot easier, and then you just stick to it. Don't take any breaks, because if you take time off, it gets a little harder to come back. Just get in, get it done, and then hopefully you pass your ethics.
That's awesome. So you had to work under a CPA to get your license?
Yeah, that's the whole point of going to a public firm.
Yeah.
You want to get your degree, you want to work for a good firm, you want to get your CPA license, get all that experience you get from working as an auditor, and then eventually you do want to transition over to a private company. Hopefully you're transitioning into a controller or an assistant type controller position.
Yeah.
Because now, at this point in my career, when I'm looking for individuals, I love seeing that they're from a public accounting firm, because those people work like none other, especially the Big Four. They have the burn and turn up type approach. So those people are working a lot of hours. And most individuals that are in public accounting are working a lot of hours, and they're gaining a lot of experience. So they're not shy from work. They know how to problem solve. They're teachable. They're hungry. That's why we look for people from public accounting. For your listeners out there, if you don't go the public accounting route, that's not a deal breaker at all, at any means. We've hired plenty of individuals that didn't go the public accounting route that are just phenomenal people.
Yeah. Earlier, you made a comment about MOF Industries. I'm curious about that. What was the whirlwind about MOF Industries?
MOF was a wonderful place of issues and problems. I really enjoyed working there. The people were phenomenal. When they had hired me on, they were in the process of restructuring. So they had hired a new VP, and I was working under a wonderful individual. Showed me a lot of stuff, gave me a lot of room to breathe and grow. It gave me the opportunity to be really creative and really see what I can do as far as like process development, report development, things like that. There was always an issue going on. It was just so outside your day to day. It just gave me a lot of exposure to a lot of different things in the company.
And you feel like public accounting prepared you for those challenges?
Oh, yeah. Public accounting in general, it just gives you such a good broad spectrum of the industry. When you're going through the audit process, just doing the internal control assessment, you're learning about the processes that make up a finance department. So when you're going in, hopefully into that controller type role, you already have a pretty solid understanding of what needs to happen. So if you do go into a company that's dysfunctional and is missing some of these processes, you know exactly where your focus needs to be in order to start improving things. And for an individual coming in like that, that gives you the opportunity to excel. It really does.
Well said. Are they a French-owned company, I think?
Yes, They are owned by this French family over there. The homeland is France, and they have a couple different companies all around the world. They had one in New Zealand, they had another one in Spain. It was an interesting dynamic working with a family that had owned this company for a while. So it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve there. I really enjoyed my time working there.
The fact that you said getting into this situation, this company, MOF Industries, and everything associated with those challenges, you learned a lot there was your comment. What did you leave behind? What was your project success there in those couple of years?
Oh, project successes. Oh, that's a good question. I had to revamp all the financial reporting from there. During my time there, I actually learned how to do all the pulling data out of the database with Excel and things like that. Automated the reporting. One of the biggest problems that company had was they had their ERP system, and then they had an accounting system, and the ERP would push data to the accounting system. The ERP system was very old. I think it was developed back in the 80s, and they had done a lot of work in it, so it was a very homegrown system, but it had a lot of kinks and problems with it. So when it came to like work orders and things like that, I had to go in and make sure that roll-up was clean. So I developed reporting to be able to sit there and look at that detail, so we're able to clean up a lot of that reporting. Being able to develop a WIP, first off with this company, when you're developing, it was a very contract-based revenue generation. You can only record revenue at certain points in time during the percentage of completion contract. It was very important to know where we were as far as like WIP, percentage of completion, and being able to have those accurate numbers would really give us good insight on when we could recognize revenue, which was important because then we developed our billing based on that as well, because we had certain milestones. And cash in that kind of industry was very important to have on hand to make sure that we could pay our bills and pay our people, things like that.
Yeah.
So that was a fun piece, and getting able to in dissecting that and developing, pretty much streamlining a lot of that information flowing from one system to another. So
was it just Excel, or were there other tools that you used? Their ERP system, was it US based?
I forget the name off the top of my head what ERP system they were using. It was old. So just to give you an idea, the VP we had hired on at that time had actually worked with that system 30 years prior.
Oh, wow.
To coming on. He's, oh yeah, I remember this system. I worked on it 30 years ago. It was a very, very old system. In the accounting stuff, they used Macola. And during my time there, I had engaged with the Macola people to upgrade their accounting system. And they had told us, this is the new Macola we have, or the Macola that you're using is like your grandpa's Buick. So these were very old systems, and there was a lot of ad hoc reporting that we had to build in order to develop that could go out regularly and in a timely manner. Reporting was pretty far off from what I remember when I first started. So here at Sun-Maid, to give you guys an example, we have our fiscal year end close, or our fiscal month close within maybe 5 to 7 business days. Phenomenal, right? Over there, that we would go sometimes into the next month of the fiscal close if there was really huge problems. Mm-hmm. So Raul used to say, this is opportunities that you have. It was great getting in there, problem solving and developing solutions to these issues. And for me, that's what I love. and I was able to excel in that kind of environment.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's like almost like an autonomous environment with support.
Yes.
Yeah,
really
and
was.
some companies aren't like that. They're really streamlined. You have your job description. Everything's already maintained to a nice level, but that's good. A growth opportunity for you. It sounds like it paid off really well.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping over to Sun-Maid, you started as a senior accountant, climbing into corporate finance. What shifted you from accounting to finance for Sun-Maid? Why did you go that path?
That was fun. So I remember you called me when I was at Moth.
Right.
And you called my phone and just straight up asked me if I was interested. And you told me about this opportunity. And what grabbed me about Sun-Maid is during that time, they were transitioning into a new CEO. He was a younger guy, restructuring the company. And I was like, okay, sounds like a really good place to work. It was a very bigger company than Moth. Had been around for a while. And I remember the raisin boxes when I was a kid. It piqued my interest. So I went and I had my interview with Jeff A. and David Dewall. Great individuals. It was a great opportunity. I remember I was actually getting married when I actually kicked you my resume. I was actually walking out the door to go get married. I was sending it off real quick. It was probably one of the better decisions of my life to make that transition. It was, as far as the title perspective, it was a step back. And it was a little bit of a decision because I was going to be transitioning at Moth from the assistant controller into the controller position and just taking over the finance department. Rahul was already winding down, ready to retire and things like that. It was a little bit of a difficult decision to leave at that point and when there was that plan or that pathway that was set out for me. But when I had met with those two guys and I had heard what they were developing and how they were running their department and the kind of culture that they were building, I wanted to be a part of it.
So it was a step back in title. So you went from assistant controller to senior accountant, but at a much bigger company. Was it a step back in pay?
No. It was a little bit of a bump. They were throwing some bonuses that could have taken and it would have been more at that time, but it was the opportunity I was looking for. It was that pathway and that growth I was looking for. That's one of the things I would recommend to any kind of your newer people coming in the industry. Look the opportunity that's right in front of you. Look at the growth opportunity. Because if you get to a company where, yes, they'll throw you maybe 10, 15 grand more, but if you hit that ceiling, you're going to be stuck there for a while. That's not a position you want to be in. You want to be in a place where, think of a plant going into a bigger pot.
Yeah.
And then you have that room to grow.
And that's an important topic that I talk with candidates all the time. In our permanent placement division, we talk a lot about that. What are your long-term goals? And are your decisions today aligned with those long-term goals? So it's very interesting to see somebody look at it from that perspective of title and money and today, because expenses have gone up and they just need more money, which is normal. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
But when you look at the opportunity, what's good for your future, I think one of the things you and I talked about in transitioning you from MOF over to Sun-Maid was that your network is going to open up nice and wide. You're going to have people better than you around you, which is going to pull you up and make you better. Mm-hmm. And they're going to challenge you in different ways because they know your job. They are a group of CPAs. They have public accounting backgrounds. All these things are good for you to be around. In a bigger company, you're right, like a big pot. You had opportunity to grow. Clearly, you've had 2 promotions and you've been there since 2019. So that's very good. You're progressive there. What's next for you over at Sun-Maid?
I think I'm just going to write it out for right now. I actually love working there. What you said earlier about the being around individuals that are just smart. I have to hand it to the CFO, Braden Bender, Jeff A., and David Dewall for building an amazing finance team over there. We have insanely low turnover, and everybody we hire is just insanely smart. Just even from entry-level people, even to the managers and things like that, insanely smart. And so being around those kind of individuals really, like, one, you can bounce ideas off of, and they'll sit there and give you really intelligent responses.
You talk the same language.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. If you're struggling, especially if you're on a call, like a project call, and you're trying to tackle an area you've never tackled before, if you've got a pretty good, solid team, they'll chime in and fill those gaps for you to get the ball rolling. It helps you grow, and it pushes you to excel because you want to be on their level.
That's almost correlation to mentorship. You're talking about like a big brother or an uncle. They're a little more experienced than you are, more years doing it. They've been through more Sun-Maid challenges, and they have some really good advice. Mentorship is critical. We talk a lot about mentorship, and a lot of people appreciate mentorship when they can get it.
I think it goes to the idea of culture, right? You want to be part of a company where you can come in and have that access to individuals that where you can sit there and ask questions. When you enter a new position, you're never going to know 100% of everything. When you're trying to fill that gap, you want to have that access to those individuals that you can go into their office or call and just ask them, hey, I've never seen this before. How'd you handle it? They'll sit there and be able to walk you through some of the issues. Because one of the biggest things you never want to do is waste your time. I mean, it's good to go through the exercise and try to figure things out on your own and develop those problem solving skills. But you don't want to hit a wall and then just sit there for 2 days or hours, just blow time. So you want to have access to those individuals that can help you overcome those obstacles to be able to develop solutions and things like that. So going back, it's the culture of the company, because you don't want to be a part of a team that's going to let you drown.
Yeah, no doubt. It's supportive and understanding, and your issues they've been through. I think that's important. They've been through those, so they know how to speak with you, give you advice, the right advice. I want to talk a little bit about like big picture. What qualities do you look for in hiring finance people besides like the public accounting background in accounting and finance in your department? What do you look for quality-wise?
That's a good question. When we started going through, we look for individuals. Like we've came to a common consensus of what we're looking for. Experience is important, right? An individual with a drive and having an individual that's teachable. When you have those two qualities, that you can really create a good quality individual for your company or your department. For me, I look for 3 main things. Like I said, drive, teachable, and the other one is, are they a culture fit? You want somebody that's going to come in that's going to fit very well with the individuals, that's going to get along, because quite honestly, when you're at work, besides your family, those are the most common people that you're going to see.
Yeah.
You're going to spend a lot of time with these individuals. I probably see my coworkers just as much as I see my kids.
Yeah.
So you want the individuals that you're surrounded with to have that kind of positive attitude, and that fits the culture, and that just makes that place a good place to work. Because, I mean, you're there for a long time. I know it's kind of cliche to say a positive attitude, but
being trainable, being coachable, those are important things.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are the top 1% accounting and finance teams here in Central California, which is amazing.
I want to stress like the drive. That's such an important quality to have, drive and being teachable. Like when you're going through the interview process and being that kind of individual, because quite honestly, like we've had individuals that have phenomenal resumes, and we decided to go with the less experienced, more green individual just because they had that drive and teachable mentality. From our experience, those are the individuals that excel. They really do. They excel very well. They're the ones that kind of think outside the box and will develop things. They're the ones that don't complain, and they're the ones that want to grow. So you give them extra work or things that are outside their scope of normal stuff, and they love it. Those are the individuals that will eventually progress to managers and all the way up to CFOs, because they're not afraid to take on new tasks. They're not afraid to learn. Those are the really big qualities we look for, and we try to weed out when we're going through our interview process.
Drive relates to work ethic, relates to time, commitment, dedication, focus, and relentless overcoming of obstacles. It all kind of falls in the same bucket, and identifying those skills is not easy to do sometimes. What questions do you ask to uncover that stuff?
You just talk to the individual. One of my favorite ones is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's such a simple question, but you'll be surprised at the wide range of answers we get. You'll get those lazy responses that are just like, I don't know where I want to be in 5 years. Oh, I want to be maybe in some kind of management role. My favorite one, we went through and we asked them, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And he said, CFO. We were hiring for a senior accountant type position.
Yeah.
I was like,
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, CFO. And I was like, very ambitious, but unrealistic. You know, you've obviously...
So I'm assuming they had a degree, but they didn't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, they had not a lot of experience. And those type of answers that really show how green the individual is, what we're really looking for is how well they thought about it.
Yeah, it's like a reasonable answer.
Yeah, I mean, just like, hey, you know, what do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Like, I want to just come in, be a senior accountant, and work my way up maybe to a manager role after 3 years, and progress my way to either controller and then maybe later on down the road a CFO. It's a very well thought out versus just like, I don't know.
And it's almost like I'm just saying to say, rather than putting thought into it.
You see those individuals when they answer, like they're genuine, they've put some thought into it, they know more or less where they want to be, and they'll be able to lay out milestones in their career on what they want to hit. That's one of my favorite questions to ask those individuals, and it really does help weed some of those individuals out. The other one I ask is, can you explain what you did previous job or your job you're still at? And what we're looking for really is how well they can explain what they do and how they know how it impacts their company. It's that second part that really weeds out some of those individuals, because if you get an individual that goes in and just focuses on what they do, that's fine. They know the job, they can do the job. You get an individual in there that wants to grow, they're going to go in and they're going to understand what they do, and they're going to understand where they fit in the process overall and how it affects the company. The amount of detail that they're able to describe when describing what they do really gives us a good insight on how well they're able to grasp the information and just to process what they're doing.
Amazing insight. A little bit about hiring expectations. They really evolved since COVID happened. Remote workers, hybrid schedules, a lot of things have shifted, including salary and compensation. One of the questions is, when reviewing resumes, what are the biggest green flags or red flags that you notice?
Green flags, red flags. So red flags, if I see an individual that has worked a lot of jobs in a short amount of time, it's usually a red flag, at least for me. Kind of points to, why is this individual not staying? Are they not get along with their coworkers? There are times where there is a very valid reason for those. I will ask, why do you have so many jobs in a short amount of time? And sometimes they're moving or something happened. It's just reasonable. But a lot of times, a lot of the job movement like that just points to instability. Getting that individual on, there's always that red flag. Okay, maybe they might be out in a year or two. I know early in your career, there's a little bit of movement there, but if you've got 7 different jobs, 8 different jobs, what's going on there?
Yeah, something's going on. Obviously, you ask, why did you leave this job? Why did you leave that job? You get the information about all of the job movement. Have you ever made an exception because somebody's job movement, let's say 4 jobs in 2 years, have you ever made an exception and hired somebody that had that movement?
One candidate comes to mind where they were at a job for a while and then all of a sudden they had some movement, and what happened was that the company had laid off, a lot of workers, and then they were trying to find another job. They're trying to find another fit, and the culture just wasn't working for them. And then they moved, from like East Coast to West Coast. There is some situations there that are pretty reasonable on why there's some movement there, but it is kind of like just that face value. When I look at it, it's a little bit of a red flag here. Green flags, I see a CPA candidate and I see they passed maybe 1 or 2 exams. That's a green flag. It shows that they're going through that process and they're actively pursuing it. They're just not blowing smoke saying, I'm a CPA candidate.
Concrete actions.
Yeah, concrete. That's a good term. Concrete actions there.
That's good.
Of progression.
Yeah, and then technical expertise. What are some of the technical questions that you ask? You have so many good people around you, like you said, David, Jeff, and even Mai does a good job on line of questioning. You do as well. What are some of the questions that you ask to understand technical expertise?
Just explain to me your day-to-day. That's the very general question, but how detailed the individual answers will give you really good insight on how well they understand what they're doing and how they're grasping what they're given. Like, it doesn't really matter if they have a small role. If they're able to explain in detail on how the information flows, on what they're doing, and how their work impacts the company or impacts the process, it shows a bigger picture mentality versus individuals just process AP invoices. Those roles are important, and to understand why and to know, it shows a lot. Something you can project out to whoever you're interviewing to, and it shows value. It really does.
That's amazing. What about hiring, interviewing, and getting information out of somebody that maybe has done all of those things? They have a nice resume, they're really bright, but they don't give you a lot of information. How do you pull information out of people to understand their skills?
So communication is big, right? It doesn't really matter how smart you are if you can't communicate. It's really just kind of lost, right? So communication is key. If you get an individual in there that's smart, that understands all this, but they can't communicate, it's a gamble from an employer type standpoint, because then you really don't know. If there is a situation that ever arises where you need that constant communication to be flowing and things like that, and it's not there, it's going to create more problems than it's worth.
So there's candidates that you pass on because they are too shy, they don't give you enough information, and it's a communication skill that's lacking, and that's a deciding factor in hiring.
Oh yeah, communication's key. It's big.
Yeah. So, it's the reason I asked that, I posed it that way. I wrote an article in April and I put it on my website, stardomconsult.com, called The Best Interview Prep Ever. And it talks about the quantity of information exchanged in an interview back and forth. Question and then answer, 5 to 8 sentences, then pause. Are you preparing for the interview, looking at the job description, thinking about logical questions you could be asked in an interview? Not enough, you need to make an adjustment. So the rehearsal and practicing gets you ready to talk more when you're sometimes uncomfortable talking. So it's like developing communication skills as possible. The article has been impactful though. I've had CFOs take it. I've had corporate controllers take this assignment seriously. It's like a 1-hour exercise. And they come out of the interview and they sound so confident about their interview and they're super excited and enthusiastic when naturally that's not their personality. It's made an impact. So if anybody wants to take a look at that article, just go to stardomconsult.com, go to our LinkedIn page under Stardom Employment Consultants, and you'll find it. This is going to help somebody tremendously. Let's talk about industry experience. When you're looking for industry experience, how important is that to you besides everything else we've already talked about?
The great thing about the accounting world is it transcends industry. Like every company needs an AP department, every company needs an AR department, everybody's following GAAP. It's very universal in that world. So I know there's like some industry specifics that we'd like to have, processing industry, because you're messing with bill of materials. Depending on the job you're going for, it does help having an individual that understands like the co-op structure. But I mean, it's not a killer. If they don't have that industry knowledge, it's not going to kill your opportunity, because in the accounting world, if you understand, the gap behind it, you understand the processes, you're going to do just fine. Especially if you're going into a senior accounting type position where you're doing a lot of account recs and things like that.
And this is where the public accounting comes in again, because it has the impact on your ability to look at things a certain way, right? How does the auditing impact the way you look at maybe reconciliations or variance analysis and things?
Oh, you get used to the account recs. Very, very easy. You're working on a lot of different companies. You're reconciling accounts, validating and things like that. For us, when we're doing our month-end close, we're going in and we're reconciling all the major accounts to make sure there's no errors in there, to make sure everything kind of ties out. You're basically doing the same work, you're just focusing on one company. Maybe in a little more detail than you're used to. The process is still the same. The problem-solving skills are still the same. The insights you get on the public accounting side from the internal control walkthroughs really gives you big picture type mentality. You understand how the processes flow. You understand how the data flows. So when you're in the details and you're doing your job, you know how your job's going to impact people later on down the road. Because quite honestly, you do come across individuals sometimes that don't really comprehend how their job impacts the rest of the company. And you'll do things that'll maybe save you a little bit of time, maybe 5-10 minutes of your time, but then it'll create a whole world of a mess later on down the road where they're spending hours trying to clean things up because you didn't follow your process and you didn't understand it on how that impacts the rest of the company.
It teaches you analytical skills. It develops analytical skills, I think, right? When you're doing auditing and public accounting?
Oh, yeah. And you're able to see variances, so you're able to spot them out very quickly. It's not just numbers to you. It's just automatically triggers in your brain, okay, there's an issue here. And you learn how to problem solve. When I first came on to Sun-Maid, one of the things they really liked about me was like, hey, just give me the work. I'll work through it. I'll figure it out. You get seasoned in your career enough to know how to work through situations you've never really been exposed to before. I guess those are those soft skills, right? Those problem-solving skills. Right. You'll see the variance, and you'll know how to get from point A to point B to point C to point D in order to come to an eventual solution to the problem or be able to reconcile and things like that. It might not be a GL account you never worked on before, or a part of the company you've never worked on before. You understand the process and you understand what it takes in order to get a solution to reconcile.
Thank you for sharing. Jumping into FP&A and your current role, and you guys went through an ERP transition. I think you're into NetSuite.
We are updating our QAD into the very new QAD. It's very exciting for our company, actually. It's got a lot of bells and whistles. It's going to consolidate a lot of our systems. We're going through it right now. Our finance team is going to really get heavily involved here in the next couple of months. So we're just waiting for IT to kind of work out the data consolidation, all that fun stuff in the back.
Yeah, ERP transitions aren't easy. A lot of people need more guidance than usually is offered. Some people, not to say Sun-Maid, but some other companies have had a very, very slow progression into it over years to get their utilization rate of their ERP system up. Are you guys planning and preparing? What goes into planning for an ERP changeover?
Oh, that's a good question. The biggest part is data, right? You want to get the data from your old system into the new system. And a lot of times the data structure changes. There's a lot of technical know-how that needs to happen to get that structured properly so everything flows into the new system, because you don't want to lose all that old data and historical information. But when it comes to testing, you want to see how it's processing invoices. Like AP is perfect, right? You know your current pain points with your current system. You know the problems that you face on every day. So you want to see that your new ERP system kind of solves these things, and you want to test for those. So you get all these different functions in accounting, pretty much playing with the system, like doing your day-to-day. Like, what happens if I run this through? Well, what happens if I do this? What kind of reporting is available? So it really is a team effort to get all the individuals that are kind of the expertise of their area to go in and start playing with the system and testing out to see what kind of problems they're going to be seeing. Are these problems that can be fixed, or do we have to develop a workaround? Now, the biggest issue that I've ever seen when it comes to ERP systems is individuals wanting to have the new system work in the same way as the old system. A lot of times when you do that, you bring in the old problems into the new system, and you're dealing with the same issues. It's trying to avoid those kind of pitfalls.
At that point, it becomes like a change management issue.
Change is not always bad.
Right.
If you're comfortable with change, just kind of roll with those punches. You may be doing things a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's probably more efficient, especially if you're dealing with a new system, you know?
Yeah, that goes back to hiring, because then you're like trainable, coachable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like switch over to a new ERP system, we're going to need a whole staff of people that are like trainable and coachable. If you had to give a new grad in accounting and finance from Fresno State one piece of advice, like what would you tell them to do if they wanted to climb the corporate ladder in accounting and finance?
Ooh, climb the corporate ladder. Being personable, you got to be teachable, and you got to be comfortable with taking on new things. And you got to be comfortable with change. You really do. If you ever want to progress through the career, you're always going to be taking on something new, and you're always going to be tackling something that you've never done before. It comes with the territory. You got to be comfortable with putting in the hours, and you got to know how to manage your time effectively. Time management is a very big skill to have, especially when you start hitting that manager area, because the amount of work never goes down. It always packs on. There's always more tasks you're dealing with, more projects you're managing. So the ability to sit there and prioritize your work and understand how many hours each task is going to take is going to really help you gauge getting to that finish line, getting things done on time. You never want to be that individual that just clocks out at 5 and just says, oh, I'm done. You want to be that individual that your manager can rely on, that's going to get it done no matter what. Because at the end of the day, we all have families. We all have things going on. So why is it that some individuals are able to finish their work on time and be consistent, and some people are not? So you want to be the individual that's reliable, always finishes their stuff on time, no questions asked. So always don't push back when they're giving you more work. If you ever want to justify a pay raise, justify a promotion, you got to be able to show them like, hey, I took on A, B, and C. That's outside my job description. And that'll give you a really good basis of why you deserve a pay raise. Because if you're hired for a certain role and you're doing that role, you know, that's your pay. Right. So why would you get paid even more for doing the same thing you've always been doing? We hired you knowing that you are reliable and you're consistent. And that was our contract when we hired you. So you need to be able to take on new things and grow to be able to justify those movements upward.
Yeah, it's a contribution to the company. It's a 50-50 relationship. You do a good job within your job description, that's 50%. You're getting paid to do that good job, that's 50%. Everything else is a nice to have. But when you take the initiative, you take things on and you show value, and you start making things better, maybe efficiency, process improvements.
So process improvement, I love that one, because there's really no task too small. You can do this at any level. Entry level, as you progress. If you take on something new, always have that mindset of, okay, how can I do this better? How can I improve this process? There's still a lot of companies out there that are not up to par yet. There's always an opportunity there to bring them into that new age. How can we process this information quicker? if there's a lot of manual steps in this process, how can I automate it? And that's where AI comes in. Huge. It's been huge the past year or two. I know for us, we utilized AI to develop macros and to do things that I had no idea Excel could even do. We do these monthly reports where it's our sales and operations meetings, where sales meets with operations, but we develop reporting. And it has to be done fairly quick after the month ends. So we developed a process where we could take the data, press a button, and it updates all pivot tables, develops all commentary. We press another button, and it develops a PowerPoint for us. And then from there, we're able to turn around a monthly presentation that normally took us 3 to 4 days within one morning.
Wow. What AI tool are you using? Is it Microsoft developed?
For that, I use ChatGPT, just sitting there doing it. But we just implemented Copilot for Sun-Maid.
Outstanding.
We're starting to mess with
we use
that now.
Copilot as well.
It's a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely fantastic tool. But from a finance and accounting perspective, being able to just have that conversation with it and develop and brainstorm ideas, like where you start is, this is my problem. How can I make it better? Like, can Excel do this? And it'll tell you more or less what it can and can't do. And then from there, you can, okay, it can do this. All right, I know where I can apply that in here and to streamline some of this work. And what you're going to see is if you take that approach, you'll notice that you'll have more time because you're saving, which will give you the opportunity to go up to your manager and be like, hey, I've got the bandwidth. This is what I've created. This is the time it saved me. What else can you tell me?
Yeah. Very good point.
Oh yeah, and those are like the gold standard employees you have, and those are the individuals that you look at that are going to promote and progress in their career very quickly.
So AI is not going to take jobs. AI is going to improve processes.
It's a tool. It's the discussion, right? Eventually, it might in the next 10 years, but as of today, no. It's just a very effective tool, and it gets you information very quickly, and how well you can utilize it. It's like any other tool. If you learn how to use it very well, you're going to be very successful in what you do.
Great advice. Funniest thing that's ever happened in an interview.
So it was Halloween, and I was dressed up in a penguin outfit, like a full-on penguin outfit.
Okay.
And there was an individual coming in. It was very early in my career. It was like one of the first times I started interviewing. And my coworker comes out that I'm interviewing with. He's all dressed up in this nice button-up shirt and stuff. And I come out in this penguin outfit with my clipboard. And I was dead serious. I was like, okay, I'm ready. He just looked at me and just, no. No. Yeah, this was like
So he left?
Yeah, no, I had to take it off and go to the interview. I was trying to go interview this guy in a full-on penguin outfit with full-on hat.
Yeah.
The penguin hat.
He made you change.
Yeah, I had my clothes on underneath.
Yeah.
But he's no, take it off.
Did he get the job?
No, he just did not. I probably could have interviewed in that penguin outfit and been okay.
Yeah.
But
you gave in to the demand.
well, I mean, you gotta give
It's
a little bit of
respectful.
a professional appearance, right?
Oh, we heard you. You were early in your career. Jeremiah, I've known you for a long time. Thank you so much. It's been great hiring for you. It's been great working with you, helping you get your career improvements throughout your life, and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you for joining us today at the Hiring Table. You won't want to miss next week's episode as we host the CEO from the Boys and Girls Club of Fresno County, Jason Hanold, airing Fridays at 12 o'clock Pacific.